I feel like my background's messed up. Is there anybody in here?
How you doing?
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. Okay, so you got abortion all 9 months. Do you have that as a position, kind of like from a point of viability or sentience or a combination of both?
I got it because that's what the law should be.
Right, but I'm just right, but I'm asking about like your more because I agree. I'm for abortion all 9 months, but I'm not. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on if it's like point of viability or if it's like deployment of sentience, like it like we so you want so basically my understanding of the abortion all 9 months is to basically say people should be able to have abortion all 9 months. Once the fetus is viable, then the abortion wouldn't be the termination of the fetus but the termination of the pregnancy. Is that where you go along with it?
The term of an abortion means the termination of a pregnancy. So no matter what it is, it's the termination of a pregnancy. No matter what the outcome is of said fetus, the termination of a pregnancy is the definition. So no matter which way you want to frame it or shape it, it is the consent of the person that's holding the pregnancy to have that decision. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
whichever way anybody wants to spin it, it still just goes back to you're infringing on someone's rights. You know, on that individual right to make their decisions that they want to decide on.
So your argument stems from like principally from bodily autonomy, bodily integrity.
Yeah, well, just in any which way that somebody wants to spin it, they're just in the wrong if they don't support all 9 months.
Okay, I'd agree with that.
Yeah,
Capitalism hurts everyone, including you. I'm a communist. Do you like to add a moniker to your sort of anti-capitalist ideals, or no?
well, I mean, we can have the discussion about communist and back and forth and things of that nature, but like capitalism, if there's anyone that's on TikTok right now and that comes into this live, capitalism probably hurt them in some type of way. You know what I'm saying?
I'd agree.
You know, so like that's the first thing that we need to, whichever social system we want to go past that, we've got to realize that like capitalism is keeping us all suppressed and oppressed.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I'd say capitalism's pretty bad, and then superstructures of YT supremacy and patriarchy, which I mean feels like you get that. You're saying you're a good man is toxic, so I feel like we're on the same wavelength here.
It sounds like it. I appreciate you coming up. I can't even see how many guests are in here for some reason.
Yeah,
TikTok's
it's
glitching, but
not showing me. Well, hey, you have a good one. Thanks.
yeah. Hey, I appreciate you coming up and having a talk. I like to speak with men with like minds like that. Um, about 150. Yeah. If y'all would let's get the likes going up. The love. Um,
How
Clark.
you doing?
Hey? I'm doing good. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
All right. Do you want to pick a specific topic here?
Let's talk about saying you're a good man is toxic.
All right.
Do you really think that's true? You really believe that?
Yeah, I do.
Do you want to offer a reason why?
Are you a good man?
Yeah?
Yeah. So there's no improvement that you could do?
Of course there's things I could do better at. But yeah, I'm a good person.
Yeah.
Good
Well,
man.
good person and good man would be two different things, right? So,
Are
but
they?
yeah, I'll say that they would be, right?
How
Because
so?
now you're trying to put your social engineer gender in the forefront of your goodness, right? So you're trying to relate those together. And so you're not leaving any room for growth, right? So when you're
No,
proclaiming that you are a good man, now you've left no room for the growth in that. You see what I'm saying?
no,
I didn't,
I understand, but I just disagree. I mean, if you get a good grade, you could still do better.
yeah, but you're not going to get a new grade on the same thing. You see what I'm saying? So like your analogy is perfect because once you get the grade, it's done. You're done working on that project, right?
But you could work on your understanding of a subject.
If you get a good grade, are you going to go back and study for the same test again?
Well, hopefully you'd continue your education, yeah.
But you take that same test again?
I'm maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
If you got a bad grade on it, you would.
I don't think saying you're good means saying you're perfect. Those are two different things.
Hmm. You're kind of, but you're missing the point of that. When people say that they're good, they're meaning like they're done working on that. Like, especially good man, especially when that terminology is used in our social construct that we have right now.
Well, let's keep talking about education here because men are really struggling with education lately.
Hmm.
Like, there's this big gap between men completing college and the number of women who complete college. And there's big problems with men um, in self harm. There's big problems with men in custody and relations to their kids, in these so called unalivings of despair, people who either who use drugs or alcohol to yeah, it's disproportionate in a lot of problems. And I think part of that is because men don't have a place on the left, a way to advocate for themselves. They're forced to choose between sort of not advocating for themselves or right wing fascist advocating. And neither of those really work for most men. Um,
So,
I think the left could do a much better job of advocating for men's causes without opposing feminism. And I think your sort of stance that no one should be proud of being a man is contributing to that.
I didn't say that you couldn't be proud to be a man, but if you're going around proclaiming that you are a good man, then that's a problem in itself. And I'm gonna kind of give
How
you
so?
some I'm gonna give you some things on the other side of that. Okay, so like, do you could I ask you how you identify as an as a person?
Sure. I'm a man, a father, a teacher. I play chess.
Mm.
I'm a liberal, a communist, an atheist, a
Okay.
vegetarian. Do you want me to go on?
Th- uh,
There's a lot of
That's
parts of me.
yeah. Is your skin tone the same as mine? Do you identify as
Yeah,
white?
I'm a white guy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So all of those things together, like, okay, so there's some margin in some of those things that you said, like that are kind of under attack, right? Like you said, you were vegetarian or vegan,
A vegetarian. But yeah,
vegetarian, and then we can just use atheist as your other, disclaimer, right? Like those two things, being those in our society, are under attack to some degree, right? Like you're on the outside. But if you don't tell someone that, then they're going to look at you and you're just a white guy. So
yeah. No,
therefore being a
I
white guy is
pass.
not under attack, right?
I have a level of privilege. Yeah.
Right. So that being the case, like when people like you and people like I advocate for others to be able to have that same privilege as us, that in turn is lifting us up, right? Because people that are very oppressed, they're going to look at us in a negative connotation because of that, right? Because there's an amount of disdain because we get that privilege and they don't. And it's the same thing as far as so you're on the outside edge on atheism and your eating habits. So you know how it feels to be on the outside, but again, if you just don't tell people that, then you don't get under any scrutiny for that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So therefore, us standing up, and historically, when a bunch of guys that look like us stand up and they make a cause together, it's usually in bad faith. Do you agree to that?
No, I don't think that's true.
You don't think that's
I
true? Do
I
you
think
think? Do you know who led
a
the
lot of
Holocaust?
times, sure, there have been
It was
times that men have
people
done
like
bad
us, right?
things, but it was also people who look like us who fought against the. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It was a much more diverse place, right?
Well, yeah. I hope that our side has people who, all different sorts of people on it. Yeah.
Hmm.
I want a diverse side. Yeah. But that doesn't mean like there wasn't people that looked like us there.
That's
People
true.
who had our
That's true.
gender and our race. Yeah.
Yeah, but we weren't. But we weren't under scrutiny for being who we are, right?
Um, yeah, no, I agree that there's a level of privilege to my
Right.
gender and my race. No doubt. But that doesn't mean that there's not oppression for towards men in our current society, and that we shouldn't pay attention to it. Um,
Could you define a single thing that's systemic in our society now that YT men are under a scrutiny and under attack for?
yes, yeah, sure. 17% of men get custody of their children. Um, that's abysmal. They're they're being robbed of probably the most important experience in your life. Most of these
Okay.
people.
So if we just use that as the example, what at, who in the percentage left the household?
Who left the household?
Yeah, like
I think
who?
relationships end for a lot of different reasons.
Mhm. Because as far as custody goes, if you have custody, then that means that you had a separation, right? You had someone that chose not to be there for whatever reason, right?
Or you had a relationship that just ended because it didn't work. I
Hmm.
think sort of saying men chose this and just abandoned is mischaracterizing. Um,
All right,
yeah,
so let's go off with another case here. So, do you think that a child has to be in the household with a parent in order for the parent to show up for that child?
no, not in every case, but I think it
Mhm.
shows a systemic bias.
Well,
And I
do
think
you
that the
think it?
more time you spend with your child, the better the relationship you have with them in general.
So you think that as many men should have custody of the child as women?
Absolutely.
Do you think that the men population agree to that statement?
I hope they do. Yeah, I think many men want custody
No,
of their children
let's
and
don't
don't have
hope.
it.
Let's don't hope for that. But do you think that men as a population go to bat and fight to get their children as much as the women?
Yes, I think many men go to bat and fight to get their children and get denied and hurt by our custody system. I'm not aware of the research on the two questions you just asked, but that's my anecdotal impression.
Yeah, I don't think that that's accurate because I feel like and I can't quote the exact number on this because I don't have it, but something like 49% of men don't show up for court for their children. Did you know, something like that? It's 49, 51, 45. It's almost half of men do not show up to court for children.
Do you have a source on that?
I can look one up right quick.
Okay.
Uh, Tim, there we go. Tim wanted to come up right quick. Uh, Tim usually has a little bit better data than I do.
I
What's up,
mean,
Tim?
the idea that men
What's going
just
on, man?
don't love their children, if
Oh,
that's the truth, then there's a huge problem.
you're right. But I think a majority of men don't love their children like they need to, or a majority of men don't understand what love is, and a majority of men don't understand what showing up for their child is. You know.
I think this is victim blaming. You're
No.
taking a systemic oppression and you're blaming the people who are being oppressed by it.
Can I make a point on this real quick?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, man. So the reason this argument of yours is it Clark? Do I have that right?
Clark, hey,
As men, as any man, we have set up all of the systems that are currently in place in this patriarchy, including setting up households and telling women for centuries and telling other men that women are inherently best suited for staying at home, best suited for childcare, and should focus on all of these things, right? So you don't get to complain about a system that then prioritizes women in custody proceedings when you have set the system up to convince everyone that women are best suited for that. You don't get to have it both ways.
You said you set this up when you set this system up. It wasn't me. I didn't set up the custody
No,
court
but you're a
system.
part of the system.
That wasn't me. And it wasn't you. And it wasn't most men. It was
So,
like a few men, and most of them are passed away because they're old and
right,
it happened a
has-
long time ago.
wait, so let me just expand on that a little bit though, Clark. How we spoke earlier. Now we have three white men on the panel, and we know that we have a little bit of privilege within inside society. It's not as great as some other men that look like us, but we do have a certain amount of privilege that we get to walk with. So we didn't set the system up, but we benefit from that system. In the same way that we benefit from the system also oppresses us in other ways, right?
Exactly. We benefit from parts of it, and it oppresses us in other parts of it.
Yeah. So what Tim is saying in that is he's saying that, like, okay, you didn't go and set up the child support stuff and things like that, right? You didn't do that.
Right.
But
That wasn't me.
we're operating under the system that was set up by men for men. So unless men advocate for a change, which is what we're doing, then we're not going to get anywhere, right? Either we're going to be complicit or we're going to actively stand up against it. And to be personal, I have a 16-year-old daughter that I didn't get to spend as much time with, and I think that disenfranchised her to a certain degree, and me definitely, but just centering her future, not being able to spend as much time with her father for whatever reason is bad. I know that the system is set up to separate us in that manner, but I'm still saying that men don't show up for their children like women do, and the system is set up to support that.
I'm so sorry. I know how hard that is. I have fought the same battle.
Right. But just because you fought the battle doesn't mean that, because the statistics show that men don't show up to even pay their child support, to take care of their child, and then when men do, they win the percentage of the majority of the time. Like you're saying that 17% of men have custody, but that's like 90% of the custody cases or something of that nature. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of times when men go for custody, they get it. Like, they win. They just have to show up and be there, because the judge is usually a man and usually sides with men. He's like, yeah, the man and the woman has to prove that she can take care of, right? But the woman is like the default in the system that we have now.
I don't think that's true.
You
I
don't
think that
that's
was true. I don't think that's true any longer.
Yeah. Well, that also depends on the state. If you look at the difference in between blue and red states, there's a stark difference in between how much the child custody goes one way or the other.
And on income, I think it's very different if you're wealthy and white than than your poverty and minority. But I think there is a heavy bias against men, especially more of a bias if you're poor and you're in a minority.
Over 25% of fathers who do not get custody have 0 in-person visits with their child each year. Do you think that that's a harmful thing to do?
I don't think that's by their choice. I think they get 0 in-person visits because they've been driven away. They weren't given custody, and now they get 0 visits. And
No.
of course it's harmful.
when they have court ordered visitation rights to their child, like in every other weekend thing, they do not show up for their child.
Well, I don't know what you're reading from, and I'd have to look at it. But if you get like 1 hour a month with your child, because like the court has taken them away from you,
That's the.
you
Would
know,
you
and
agree
you
that that's,
don't.
wait, before we go down that path, would you agree that 1 hour a month is not the standard visitation?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so what would you classify as the standard visitation in this situation?
I think every other weekend is
Right.
pretty common.
So if a man is to 1 hour a month, do you think the court did that unintentionally, or do you think that there was something that showed that he was only responsible enough to be impressionable to a young person for 1 hour a month?
There was probably some reason, but there's also tremendous
Okay.
bias. And I have little faith in our court's ability to tell the truth, particularly when, unlike in every other part of the law, you are not guaranteed a lawyer nor a jury of your peers in custody court. If the court wants to send you to jail for 1 day for smoking some weed or something, you get a lawyer, right? You get a right to an appeal. You get all these things that you don't get in custody court. The 1 day of freedom, the court treats as a more severe restriction than your entire relationship with your children for years. Why don't we protect our children the way we protect our property in court? Why don't you have a right to a lawyer? Why don't you have a right to a jury? Why don't you have every protection? It's more important. There should be more protections. There should be lawyers for the children too.
Yeah, so you can continue to fight for your children as long or and as often as you would like, and I would also go down
It's
the road.
exhausting. It's exhausting to fight for your
Understanding it's
children.
exhausting.
You
It is,
have
but
to
aren't they
spend
worth it?
enormous amounts of money, and you have to like fight against this system for years, while suffering all this pain and all. Yeah, it's
So what
a
wanna
lot to ask men to fight forever against the whole system that's against them.
So
I'm sorry, I have to say something about that. That's
cool.
I think it's pretty audacious of you as a man to come up here and say that it's exhausting for men to fight about this one particular instance in a system when we are, like Jeff has said many times, we're all at the top of the food chain. We don't usually have to fight for things in the system. And
Not
for
all
you
men
to-
are at the top of the food chain.
all
not
men
most
benefit
men.
from the patriarchy. It is unequivocal that all men in some regard benefit from a patriarchal system. That's what a patriarch.
Sure, that doesn't mean top of the food chain.
But
Those
But
statements aren't equivalent.
compared to the other people that are in the system, yes, we by and large are. And I'm not saying that every
Tell
man.
that to a young black man in jail.
so you've already discredited what you've said because you said a young black man in jail. We're not black men, and so we as whitey men are benefiting from the patriarchy the most. Do you not agree to that?
I agree. Yeah, I have lots of advantages, but I
Okay,
also have.
let's use your
disadvantages.
same example. Well, let's use your same example. What you're doing is you're equating and you're saying young black man in jail. I know the system is rigged against you for child support, and what we're going to do here is we're going to work to improve it or whatever the case might be. I know that you're being disenfranchised, and so you're trying to use his example as that. But the fact that you went to a young black man in jail, like that in itself is like that's racist. Do you agree to that?
No. How is that racist?
Because you can't speak on that person's experience. First
Yeah,
of all,
and that's
I'm just pointing out that obviously those people aren't on the top of the food chain.
well because that was the
Characterizing
first
all
time-
men as on the top of the food chain is ridiculous.
Yeah,
yes, there are levels. It is a hierarchy, but every case, there will be some instance where a man is going to gain a benefit that a non male presenting or however you want to put it is not going to have.
Hmm.
Men have some advantages. That's how I would say it.
Yeah, and more advantages than others. And the reason why I said that it was slightly racist is because we've only brought up our skin tone to say that there's whitey privilege and male privilege. And then the first time that any other, ethnic background or race was brought up, you automatically put them in jail, which is a wild place to start for, you know what I mean? So like, let's don't do that. But we've agreed that there's white privilege and male privilege, and we benefit from both of those. So that being the case, using the food chain as the example, we're at the top of that. Not saying that we're benefiting greatly, because there's some people that are benefiting exponentially more than us, right? But we are, we are benefiting from that system.
I think class and money mean far more in terms of societal advantage and education than
Okay, so you said class
gender
and money,
and
right?
race. Yeah.
So percentage wise, who do you think has that? Who do you think has the most? And when you say class, we're talking about money, right?
Yeah, we're talking about money. Yeah.
Who do you think has the most money within inside of our society?
Yeah, I'm sure you're saying it's white people. Yeah. And yeah,
I'm
I
not.
agree.
I'm not saying it like it's a question. I mean, it's like that's true, right?
Right. But the fact that like 1% of white people are very wealthy doesn't mean that the other many, many white men are not being oppressed and hurt by
Oh,
the system.
and you walked right into the third point. Capitalism hurts almost everyone, including you. So
Right.
we
And I
shouldn't
agree with
support a
you.
capitalistic system, right?
Absolutely.
Right, because people are granted a little bit of a white privilege, and they feel like everyone gets that or something or another, and it's just not the case, right? So we need
Right.
to advocate for more equality and equity inside of our society, right?
Right. I think you and I agree on this.
Right. And so I don't know why you want to hang your hat on the child support thing, right?
Well, I think
We
that
can
saying I think the bias against men in the modern leftist attitude and modern liberalism is problematic. I think it sends an army of young men to join people like Trump, undermines our own cause.
Mm, I just don't think that there's nothing against men like that. Do you think this is against men?
Yeah, when you write saying you're a good man is toxic. It's men take that as, or you often see TikTok lives where say it's all men until it's no men.
Do you not support that?
No, I think that's
what's your understanding of that statement?
misstating it.
What's your understanding of that? How do you understand that statement?
That's a good question. It's deliberately a little bit vague, but I think what it means is that a low level anger and mistrust against men is justified.
That's not what I
I'm
mean.
going to say it doesn't mean that. So and I would love if I hate talking on this because I am a man, and it is definitely something that women are much more in tune with. I don't have the type of experience that a different group has, but the women I have spoken to, I will say it's two things. There is no way of knowing walking down the street if a man is a good man or not, right? There is always a bit of caution that has to be used by women in this society because it is rife with patriarchy and misogyny and danger towards women. I mean, that's indisputable. The other point of it is it's all men till it's no men because, excuse me, all of us benefit directly or indirectly from being seen societally as the smarter group, the stronger group, the morally superior group, et cetera. Whether we want to or not, or whether we actually are, that is what the system has set us up to look like. So whether we actively participate in misogyny or not, all men still benefit from that system. And all women, both directly and indirectly, will suffer from that same system, from just the stigma of being seen as less intelligent, being seen as the weaker sex, etc. Whether they've been actually victimized or not, they're still victimized by the misogynistic attitudes that exist within our systems. And that is why it is all men until it's no men. It's because we as men have the greatest ability within the systems we've set up to make it change. So until we do that, it is all men. You know, even the existence of the violent men that do exist helps men who aren't, because we get awards for delivering the most basic form of decent human behavior because of these other guys. Right now, the bar for us is set incredibly low.
I don't think that's true, but your
Statistically,
general
it is,
point,
though.
your general point that there's systemic sexism and
Yes.
patriarchy. I agree with you, right? But that's not what "it's all men" means. "It's all men" is like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna treat all men this way. It's not. It's not a description of the world. It's a prescription of how we should treat people.
No, that's
No.
what you've experienced as it's all men until it's no men. In my opinion, all men until it's no men is the same as what Tim said, right? Like we as men get to benefit from a system that others don't get to benefit from. And so until men sort this out, it's all of us are problematic to people that aren't us, because we're benefiting.
There it is. All of us are problematic.
Yeah, because we're benefiting from the
That's
system
what it
without calling
means.
it out, right? If you're okay with a system that disproportionately puts you at an advantage and other people, just because of the nature of their anatomy, at a disadvantage, then you're part of the problem. Do you not agree?
Of course I want a more just system. Of course I'm a feminist. And of course I advocated for it. But calling all men problematic is just hostile to men.
Okay, so what does feminist mean to you?
Feminist means you want to advocate for a society that treats women better.
No, not better, equal. So you
Yeah.
said better.
Better.
So like you're saying if we just do better than what we've done, that's good enough. But that's not good enough.
No, I'm not saying it's good enough. I want to help women.
Like,
That's what a
But
feminist
you're
is.
refusing to say the word equal, though. You don't want equity. You just
I'm
want
happy
better.
to say equal. I want equity.
Yeah. So you have to get out of the way, because you're in the way of that, and that's what
How
it's
am
all
I in the
been.
way of that?
Because you're benefiting from a patriarch system, and you're not allowing, and it shouldn't even be that case, but we have to use this language. You're not allowing women to assume an equal role because we are in the way of that. Do you see what I'm saying?
I'm not allowing women to. How am I not allowing women to have an equal role?
Do you believe the patriarchy is real?
Yes, as I've
Okay.
said many times.
Okay, so
And
are you?
I work against it. I advocate, particularly in my state, for abortion rights and women's control over their body.
Okay, that's one part of it. But if you don't understand that it's all men, then that's an issue, right?
Well, I am just at a loss to understand what you mean by "it's all men," and I think we have been going back and forth about that.
Yeah.
I think the reason you can't, and this I'm not trying to be insulting towards you at all, Clark. This is I think part of the reason that you are not understanding the point of all men until it's no men is that you're suffering with a little bit of ego right now. You're kind of in a state of aggrieved entitlement, which is really common.
Grieved and I don't think I am. I
Well,
honestly don't think so.
you have. Can you tell me what aggrieved entitlement is, first of all? If you think you're not,
Like playing a victim card, I don't think I'm doing that. I'm
no,
saying
no,
there
it's you're
is a
not playing a victim
systemic
card.
problem.
I'm not saying you're playing a victim card at all. I'm saying what aggrieved entitlement is. It is literally the definition. I believe an existential state of fear or wariness about having your rightful place in society challenged. Like as a man being told no, you're wrong, and a lot of men will just boom set off alarm bells subconsciously, like, oh my God, how dare you tell me that I'm wrong, instead of just listening to another point of view and making the assumption that, hey, I could learn something here, instead of just saying, oh, this doesn't go with the way I think, so it must be wrong, which
I'm
which
advocating
is a
from a thought out
colonizing
and researched
mindset, which goes
political
way, way back.
position,
But
not an emotional reaction. This is a thought out political position, not my ego speaking.
A thought out political position.
Yeah, that the left has made a mistake by playing identity politics and by driving men in droves to support the far right.
I don't think men are being driven in droves. I mean, if we just want to say what we're thinking or what we're believing, which is what you've been doing instead of listening to other arguments, I'll say that. I'll say, hey, I don't believe that men are being driven into by droves by Trump or by the left ideology to Trump. I see an enormous amount of men actually, excuse me, waking up, and so to speak, and listening to these other point of views, and realizing, yeah, things in society have to change. And you're always going to have these. Go ahead.
Imagine you're a young man, 25 or something, and you
That's a big
lose.
stretch. I'm old.
Me too. And you lose custody of your child, as many men do, right? There's all that anger there, and you look for like a political outlet for that feeling. You won't find it on the left.
Well, so first thing I'm going to do is I think this is a good point to bring up. It's not left or right, sir. What it is it's a societal problem that we've created by the patriarchy, that men don't have a place unless they're being the oppressor. And that's what you're alluding to. Because the right says, no, you should be in control of your family. You should be in control of your children, even though men don't do a great job at that, just as a general default. But you're saying that the right is making a space for these young men and saying that this is
Yeah,
their place, but their place is being an oppressor. And that's the problem. And
right.
the left is advocating for everyone to have their individual rights, or from what I think of as the left. And men can be men. You just have to decouple being a man with being an oppressor. Oh, and that there's not a playbook on that. There's not a rule book on that. You really have to dig deeper, right? Once you realize that the system is faulted in many ways, now you have to do the work of finding your own position within inside of society that's equitable to society, not to rule over society, right?
I don't want to rule over society.
Yeah,
That's
and when I say that,
you're
I mean
mischaracterizing me.
definitively. No, I mean definitively. Like men are the leader in their household. Men are the leader at work. Men are the leader here, and so forth and so on. There's more men commentators on the radio, on sports networks. Men hold positions of telling others things instead of there's never been a woman president. There's only 21% of the representatives that are women. There's all of these things where society says that men are supposed to hold those positions. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And so that's what I'm saying. Men are the oppressors over society, not you exactly. So let's don't say you, Clark, but we're just talking about
Right.
men in
Not
general.
me, and not
Like
most men.
yeah, but inherently, all men to some degree, because you're not even taking this. And I'm not saying that others don't, because the first time that I had a woman boss, I was like, I'm questioning her on minute details. And that's wrong of me. That's my misogyny showing through, right? I have to allow her to be the boss because that is her position. If I don't think she's great at it, or if I think she's great at it, whatever the case is, that's her position and not mine. So I can't tell her how to do her things, right? And that characterizing as far as men goes, that's what we've been doing for years and years. And you can
Should
see
be
it right
allowed to
now.
question your boss.
Yeah, you can see it right now in the race for the presidency. There's only one candidate that their reproductive past has been in question. There's only one candidate that their offspring has been in question. There's only one candidate of what articles of clothing they wear have been in question.
Well, I have a lot of questions about Trump's reproductive past and his offspring and his clothing because it's pretty bad.
I
But
understand
I take your point.
but we're talking about the news outlets and the media and what people are
Yeah,
talking about and all this type of stuff. There's only been one that's been in question about
right.
what they
Yeah.
haven't even reproduced. So how, and
He
so
gets away with SA and sleeping with porn stars, and yeah, and
exactly,
that's fine. And
that's the system
yeah,
that we have to help break
yeah,
down, right?
I agree.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but I am gonna rotate you out, Clark. I'm gonna bring up another. I think John was in the queue for a while. I'm trying to get people moving along a little bit more. I appreciate you coming up and having a conversation. If you want to follow me, we're gonna keep having these discussions and try to break down and try to bring a more equitable society together. Okay.
You want me to
I'd
go
love
ahead and jump
to.
down so you can bring people up?
Um, Tim, if you will hold out for a little bit longer.
All right,
Thanks,
that's
Clark.
good. Yeah.
Unless you got to go, I know it's a different time frame for you over there.
Nope, just drinking coffee, trying to wake up.
There you go. There you go. What's going on, John?
Nothing much. How you doing?
Man, we're making a little day of it. Is there one topic up here you want to talk about?
I would disagree with abortion 9 months, and I'm assuming you're in the affirmative position.
That's correct. But why do you disagree with that?
One, I believe in a universal personhood amongst all human beings. And two, that negative states of dependence are not justified to be ended in violence.
Okay, so you're given like some sort of personhood to a fetus.
Yes, I would affirm that as a living human being who is naturally ordered to rational function, they are equally worthy of ethical consideration, just like you and me.
All right, so John, I don't know how much schooling you got or where you're from or anything like that, but I don't have a bunch of it. And I'm in Alabama, and so we don't use real big words like that. We use like procrastination sometimes and preposterous. We use some of those big words, those what we call $2 words, but we normally just talk in like regular stuff. So we can just talk in regular stuff. If you can do that and still uphold this discussion, so let's just talk in just regular words, right?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be esoteric.
Yeah.
Just that, like, because someone's a human, they're also a person. And if someone's a person, we should treat them with respect and dignity. And two, that when someone just kind of passively depending on another person, even if it is to entail their body, that doesn't necessarily justify acting with violence upon them.
Well, the first thing, like when you were talking about a person is a human and stuff like that, the first thing I thought of was the person that's pregnant. I thought about the grown woman and her rights. And you didn't, I don't think. You went immediately to the fetus, yeah?
Well, I think that they have rights that are equal to each other. And this is an act that is specifically destroying their body and killing them. So, yes, this does impact. There's a conflict of rights with the pregnant person, but that doesn't necessarily rule out that the right to life and the right to exist of the child.
So, got you, Tim. So what you're saying is that before someone is granted like legal rights and stuff like that within inside the United States, they're a person and they're deserving of life.
Yes, I think that personhood in America has historically been problematic, right? African Americans were called 3/5 of a person in the Constitution. I think that all human beings are entitled to personhood and equal rights, irregardless of the law.
Okay, so does that mean that, and you're saying that if someone is dependent on someone else, that it is what it is, and they should just deal with it for that long, right?
Yeah, I do not think that violence is an acceptable measure. I think there are acceptable measures that do not necessarily violate the dependent person.
As in what? What are those acceptable measures?
I mean, like, if there is a conflict of survival, like, I think under the principle of double effect, preserving the life of the pregnant person is justified, even in its violence. I think if someone wants to have, like, an elective C-section, that is completely okay, anesthetic or not. I think as long as there is respect for both parties' rights, I think actions can be taken, but it is only when both are respected.
Okay, so if someone unalived and then the state wanted to take some of their organs or blood or anything like that, you're okay with that type of stuff?
Yes, I would, but I wouldn't think that's necessarily analogous to reframing for violence on a person that's alive.
Yeah, but somebody that's unalived, you're okay with their organs being removed without their consent and stuff like that.
Yes, they're a corpse. They're a physical object. The government has full rights to do whatever they want.
They don't here and now, but you're saying that they do.
I say as an entity, they ought to.
So you're advocating for that. So when someone is unalived in the hospital for whatever reason, we should drain out all their blood and such as that.
Well, I don't know necessarily if blood donation is best, but like things like organs, the liver, the heart, the kidneys, those things that are very viable for donors, I think there should be an automatic registration that people aren't allowed to opt out of.
Yeah. So that's like a fundamental issue with morals, and we'll never get to a good discernment with an abortion, because that in itself is a very problematic viewpoint to have. So if you think that someone so their corpse can be mangled up by a medical professional for someone else's benefit, even if they consented against that, that's a problem.
There's no longer an actor that can consent or not consent. There's just a physical object.
How can a glob of cells consent or not consent?
They do not have the ability to consent, just like a baby doesn't have the ability to consent.
Just like a corpse doesn't have the ability to consent, right? So where do you establish the beginning and ending of the rights to bodily autonomy then? And how are you setting up a scale to judge which life has more rights than the other? Like, where do you do that?
Well, all lives are equal, but different lives have different degrees of autonomy. Like a baby has no idea what it's doing, so it needs to be put in protective custody, and it needs to have its decisions be made for it by other actors. Because if you do not have the ability to take care of yourself, or you're a threat to yourself or others, there is a duty and an obligation for others to take in and care for you, because you do not have the ability to do that yourself.
Okay, so you would also be pro-abortion in the case of SA or grape that results in a pregnancy, because the person who was graped had no control over the situation and what was going on in their body in the resulting pregnancy. So that would be all right with you as well.
No, I would not.
Well, so a baby can have bodily autonomy because it has to deal with circumstances that are beyond its control, but not a full-grown adult.
They don't have bodily autonomy. They have protective custody. They have no control over what happens to their body. It is decided by other people, just like circumcision or vaccines. The baby has no choice for it. It is just the choice of the parent.
Or grape.
No, that is sexual exploitation. That's sexual violence. That is wrong of itself. It's not just a violation of consent.
So if the resulting of that non-consensual activity results in a pregnancy, you're saying that person has to deal with the pregnancy.
Yes, the innocent child should not suffer violence for the acts of their father.
Okay, but the innocent woman should.
It's not a
Right.
punishment. It is just a naturally thing that occurred. That is
It's
unfortunate.
just
but-
a thing that occurred. That's what grape is to you?
No, not rape. Rape is a terrible crime that should be avoided, but just pregnancy, which is a different process.
How does a woman grant? You're just blowing my mind here with this. How does a woman grant permission, so to speak, for pregnancy?
Her body, it's not really granting permission. I wouldn't say that there's formal consent, but her body accepts
So you're
pregnancy.
against consent.
I'm not against consent. I just think that there are limits on what people's will is able to do. And I think that's what all laws do. They restrict people's ability to do certain actions because they harm other people.
Yeah, and so when someone breaks those laws, you're saying the result is just is what it is. You're not concerned with the consent at that point because the consent was already broken the first time. That means you're just going to take it the second time.
So, yeah, just like if someone stole my organs and they gave it to someone, I can't kill that person to get my organs back. My organs are stolen. The state has been induced. Nothing I can do about it. It just is. Even if it was like both my kidneys and I'm going to slowly die on a dialysis machine, I do not have the right to violate another innocent person in order to assert my autonomy.
Let's F1 in the chat. Let's try to use things like unalive and such as that. You know, we need to be TikTok consensual, right? So consent is a problem for you, apparently.
Just that it's not absolute. I think that consent should be respected to the highest regard in almost every circumstance.
Almost every. So what's the circumstance where consent can be disregarded?
When it is a threat to oneself or someone else.
I'm clutching my pearls right now talking to you because you're the view that you have on this is crazy.
That's
Yeah.
literally the parameters for a psych hold. When you're a threat to yourself or others, your autonomy is restricted. I don't think that's unreasonable.
When you're a threat to yourself,
So you would be for it. So let's take that. Let's jump on that logic train of yours. If that's the case, then a woman who, let's say she was raped and has to have this, and you're saying she needs to have this pregnancy, carry this pregnancy resulting from that. If she is adamant about having an abortion, you think it would be completely allowable for her to be placed on some type of a psych hold or something similar, some sort of, as you said before, protective custody where she's not allowed to harm herself or this child. You would be for that.
Yes.
What the actual F?
Not any punitive measures, just simply rehabilitative, just not allowing that event to occur.
do you think that the state should pay for free lunches in all of the cafeterias at school?
Yes, I support an enduring life ethic, universal health care, free food, free education.
And
I can't find a disconnect here.
yeah, and what about in in Europe they have a universal income for children, ain't that right, Tim?
Yeah, up to a point.
Until they're 18, or do you support that?
It depends. It depends on the country. In France, it's I believe up to 16.
Right, and I think England is 18.
Oh, I would love to have like a child pension. I think that would help parents pay for children and introduce financial stability. I think that would be a very great policy.
I'm trying to go back to. I'm trying to find where we're veering off here.
I
think it all
can't
goes back to bodily autonomy. I think it goes back to autonomy. That
Okay.
you have some strange disconnect between a fully formed human's bodily autonomy versus a non-viable human's autonomy?
Well, I don't think particularly viability is necessary to constitute personhood. I think that they remain at ethical equality. And I think that just like the autonomy of me, if I am unaliveable and I have that ideation, I have my autonomy restricted because I'm a threat to myself or others. I think that it's equally reasonable to put those restrictions on autonomy when it's a threat to someone's child.
Okay, so you're still relating child to clump
But
of
you
cells.
did, and you did earlier say that viability does matter because a corpse is not a viable human.
They are not alive, period. They are not having cellular reproduction. They are not having metabolism. They are not having homeostasis. They are not alive. They are a bag of meat. That is not the same as a living child in the womb.
There are no children living in wombs. Let's start correcting some language here. I know that's hard for you, but you cannot put an equivalency to a group of cells that cannot exist without someone else's assistance for and say child. I mean, they are completely separate things.
A young living human being with parents. I wouldn't refer to that as a child, but I'm sure you can find a couple definitions where it qualifies birth, and I think you can find a couple definitions where it doesn't.
So let's ask this question. What happens in the case of, I'm just asking questions to try and get a handle on where you're coming from with some of this, but what about a case of ectopic pregnancy?
Well, again, that would be under the principle of double effect. There is no chance for that to be carried to term, and they are occupying the wrong space, so you can clear them out, even if it entails their death, and that is an unfortunate collateral damage, but that is not an elective abortion.
It certainly is by definition, that is an abortion.
I said elective.
And it's elective. She chose
She
to
could
have
choose
that.
to not have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she could choose to die instead.
The same way that someone with chemotherapy and cancer, they can choose to have chemo or they can choose not to have chemo.
There is at least an ethically significant difference between the principle of double effect, saving the life of the mother with a very unfortunate collateral damage of the child, versus just doing it because someone wants to or mental health issues.
You're putting that clause in there. I'm not, Tim's not, other people aren't. You're putting the clause in there that says that there's, we're going to be okay with this. That's your moral high ground on that. And I extend my moral high ground just a little bit further and say, anytime she feels or the pregnant person feels necessary, they should be able to have a lifesaver. They live in 2024. They should have that available. It's the same way that I have the availability to get a tattoo.
Well,
It's my life.
just like it's wrong to kill someone just because just like it's wrong for even a conjoined twin to unalive another conjoined twin just to say, I'm doing what the heck I want with my body. And it's not necessarily wrong to have to do a surgery to save one of their lives when they're both going to die. I think there is a very strong ethical difference between saving a life with collateral damage and just killing someone, unaliving someone for the sake of it. That is just two different things.
So you're concerned about the life at certain times and not at certain times. So because and here's what I'm going to say here. So when the pregnant person's life is in danger, once it reaches a certain threshold, you're okay with the abortion, right?
When it is incidental of a life-saving measure, yes.
When it's what? Let's use regular words.
So, like, it is just something that is happening for a procedure that just needs to happen. So,
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. So your thought process in that is the problem, is because it's not for a procedure that just needs to happen. It's for a procedure that a person is requesting because they have body autonomy, okay? And an abortion is less invasive, severe, and life-threatening than carrying a pregnancy to full term. Did you know that?
That is technically true, but neither of them necessarily constitutes a significant threat on one's life.
Okay, I don't think that you know the stats then, because a pregnancy is a
22
very,
per 100,000 in the United States, 2 per 100,000 in Poland, who has stricter abortion regulations than the United States.
how many and what?
22 per 100,000 in the United States, according to the CDC, 2 per 100,000 in Poland, who has stricter abortion control than the United States.
I don't want to take those odds. I would rather not. I would rather not be pregnant. Here and now, I'd rather not be pregnant.
Do you
I'd
know
rather
what is the chance of you just dying, happenstance, according to the Social Security Office? Based off of your age and demographic, that just you're going to die this year?
I don't. Unalive. We got to start using.
I'm alive, sorry.
Yeah. What is it?
I don't know your age, but you can look it up. For me, it is, I believe, 1 out of 86,000. I mean, not 1 out of 8,000. That is just the passive risk of me being alive right now.
Yeah. So we've got 33 unalivings per 100,000 in maternal. Right? Is that what you said?
22, but maybe that stat changed. But I think 33 is like in the higher states.
Yeah. In the higher states that probably have more restrictive abortion bans.
Who
Are there-
generally
are
have
there
less
more
developed healthcare and
specific-
had less developed healthcare before the Dobbs decision. And you can look to countries like Poland who have more, who are much better than the United States because they have universal healthcare.
Yeah, or they have more systemic racism. The states with more systemic racism is disproportionately disadvantaged to people of color, right?
I would agree that is a factor that is affecting the maternal mortality rate in those states.
Yeah. So therefore, your stance on abortion itself is disproportionately effective to people of color within inside the United States, because we don't have universal health care, and we don't have access to good health care. So women that can't have access to some abortions are more likely, if they're a person of color.
I would like to expand healthcare, but yes, people of color are more likely to be both the victims of abortion and have maternal mother deaths.
Okay, so let's flip this conversation. Let's flip this conversation on its backwards then. Instead of advocating for a legal, abortion, then why don't you advocate for better universal health care and things like that within inside the United States, and allow people that can have them to continue to have them? But let's make a system where the person that has become pregnant does not want to have an abortion, right? Does that not sound like a good plan?
Well, I would love to support universal health care when the most left-wing viable party, as much as I would like to vote solidarity, is not promoting as the basis of their platform and requiring all members in federal government to pledge to the legal right to murder children. To unalive children. I can never support that policy as long as that is a requirement for that party.
No one is advocating unaliving children. And you keep throwing this language
Unaliving
in
the
there.
human beings that you are dehumanizing by denying that they are children that are in the womb.
So, do you think it's dehumanizing to make laws that are disproportionately effective of people that can become pregnant? Do you think that's dehumanizing?
No, that's just how laws do. They have incidental effects that do affect systemic disparities, like restrictions on theft do disproportionately affect minorities. And that's very unfortunate, and that's reflecting of real systemic backgrounds. But that does not necessarily mean that thefts of like over 10,000 grand should be unpunished or uncontrolled.
Okay,
That's
so
just part of
could you
running
name
society.
could you name me a law that is directed at men?
Generally, men are the vast majority of unalivers.
I
right?
didn't say
That's
what
not
I
a
didn't say
law
what
restricting
that
men's anything.
Yeah, I didn't say what law is men, more likely to commit. I said a law that is targeted towards men and it affects men only.
Well, there are trans men who have pregnancies, and there are many women who cannot get pregnant. It's not really just a law against women, it is a law protecting unborn children. And that does disproportionately affect certain people, but just because it disproportionately affects someone doesn't necessarily mean the law is right or wrong.
Oh my goodness.
But it certainly means it's not an equitable law.
Correct.
It's not an equitable law. I would agree that there is
Then-
inequality of law reflections of certain systemic disparities. That is how it works with almost every law.
No, it's either a misogynistic law or it's a law for all, and that's it. There's no law, and you alluded to that. There's no law that is for men.
There are laws that the majority of people convicted are men, right? And the majority of people affected are men because men have more impulsive behavior. You would agree with that?
Men have more impulsive behavior.
No,
Yeah.
they have problems controlling their impulses. Don't make it sound like
Yes.
men just are victims of these impulses that they can't simply control.
Men
Right.
are more poorly socialized, or whatever cause it is, to have more impulsive behavior in their lives, and because of that, are more likely to be convicted of certain crimes.
Okay, but those laws that are in place are not specifically geared towards punishing men for something.
And I think that men should be punished if they unalive an unborn child. It's not something I think that women should be uniquely burdened with. I think that everyone who unalives a child should be restricted from doing that behavior.
Yeah, I just don't think that we're going to make any headway because we've already decided that you have a consent problem, right?
Is that
And
not the current policy of basically every single hospital, that you are put on a cycle when you are a threat to yourself or others?
When you're a threat to yourself or others,
Yes, is that not the current guidelines to basically every hospital in the country for when your behavior is restricted and they put you in a psych hold?
yes. So what you're saying is people that get pregnant and think about having an abortion are they need psychiatric evaluations. That's what you're saying. They're mentally ill, is what you're saying.
They are a threat to themselves or others, but I think that is just generally a tolerable restriction of autonomy. When you are going to hurt yourself or you're going to hurt another person, it is okay to restrict your autonomy.
Yeah. So describe a person for me, right quick. Can you do that?
A human being,
Okay.
a living
what is
organism, rationally ordered,
rationally ordered?
meaning that based off of the latency of their existence, based off what kind of thing they are connected to metacognitive and transcendental ideas.
Okay. And things that have abortions don't have that. They don't have those free
Just
thoughts,
like-
what we're thinking about.
Just like a baby doesn't have active metacognition, they don't have these advanced ideas, but they're
So let's
developing
wait-
towards that because they're part of a body of something like that.
You used a big word, brother. All I got's a high school education, 3 pairs of glasses, and I'm clutching my pearls. That's all I got right now. Okay. I ain't got nothing no more than that. I never did sit in no college classes. I didn't get that privilege and opportunity. I know that I look white, but I was just a little broke kid growing up. So I knew college wasn't in the cards for me. So you said some big fancy words, but I would like to say thoughts, processes can live by themselves, breathing, living organism, right? That's independent of other organisms. That's what I would define as, like, I think some people call it sentience, stuff like that, right?
Well, a fruit fly is sentient. Are they a person?
Are they a human being? Are they of human variety?
No, so there's something unique about human life that has ethical consideration.
Are we aborting fruit flies?
We certainly are unaliving fruit flies. Would you not deny that over the course of your life, you have led to the unaliving of a fruit fly, and you've not had much care about doing that?
I try not to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, but a fruit fly is not really sentient, right? Like that's not,
You can
we're
look it
not.
up. They are aware of their senses. They are having a conscious experience. They are sentient.
Okay, so you don't eat any animals either, right?
No, I don't think that sentience is the basis of moral worth. A pig is more cognitively advanced than a infant or even a 3-year-old, but I still think it is
I would say that a
perfectly.
pig is more cognitively advanced than a John Paul. Would you agree?
I do not agree because that's just how pigs work, but I don't think that was a serious comment.
You don't think that a pig has a more right to a life than you?
I think a pig is animative life. It is not a rational life, so it doesn't have ethical consideration. There's nothing wrong for a pig to eat my face off. It can do that. I am a thing. It is an animated thing. There is no ethical mutual connection between us.
It is an animated thing. It is not sentient. It is nothing like that.
They are
you're-
sentient, but
No, they are not.
a pig is sentient.
I'm not talking about pigs. I'm talking about a fetus. By your argument, it
I
should be
dis-
okay because they are not sentient. You just
I disagree with sentience. I'm appealing to animals being sentient to say that is a very arbitrary line for personhood. I think that there's an inherent value to all human beings.
Again, like I said, I mean, we're just not going to be able to reach a rational thing. And that also, at the end of the day, I would like for you. I am getting ready to. We did great. We did great. We're going to shut this rascal down because I'm being respectful of my bedtime. If anybody wants to come back tomorrow, y'all are welcome to, or the next day. I don't know if I'm gonna be live tomorrow because I'm gonna go work on hot rods and stuff. But I would like for you, instead of unaliving yourself on this hill of abortion laws and bans and advocating for the unborn, I would love for you to unalive yourself on the hill of human rights to children and give them better economic opportunities to be successful in this world. Because at the end of the day, I think that people that have abortions, that's a very tough decision that they have to make, whether it's to keep or to go through with the surgical procedure. And if we had a society that invested more in the future and well-being of future children, then they would probably agree to go through with said pregnancy a lot more than trying to have an abortion, right? So let's make a society that puts people and human rights first, and then we will, by nature, we will see the reduction rates of voluntary abortions and involuntary, to be honest with you, because when people get pregnant, we would have better health access and things of that nature. So our bodies would be better capable of handling it. We would be in better food, better environments, all these types of things. Stress at work creates miscarriages. Spontaneous, which is a spontaneous abortion, or however they word that in big school. So there can be a person that becomes pregnant that wants to carry the child to term, but because of the life that she's in with breathing the air quality that we have here in the United States, her body can say, we're not going to handle this pregnancy right now. And then you have a miscarry, right? So let's advocate for those things. And when we do that, in turn, we will fix the other. You see what I'm saying?
100%. Maha. Exactly what Kennedy is planning. And that's going to be a massive improvement in getting rid of the chemicals, single-payer healthcare. I think that is the trajectory America should go towards.
Single healthcare, what now?
Single-payer healthcare. That is the closest we're probably going to ever get to universal healthcare, where there is a national insurance offering every person healthcare and greatly expanding Medicare as it currently is and what it covers.
I don't think that Kennedy's going to be the one to do that, but I guess, all right. I don't know where to end that. Let's say if you want to have a conversation again, then we'll have a conversation again.
Thank you.
But,
You're a great host.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's been a fun time. But Tim, is there anything else you want to say? I feel like it's been a minute since you've been up here. It feels like it's been a minute since I've been up here too, because I've been gone.
No, it's just been busy, but it's good to see you back on, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you being up here every time. I'm trying to hold more. I think this is the first time it's ever happened. It was a men's only live, and I feel as though we may have not changed many minds, of the men that we spoke to. But I feel as though we may have clicked a couple of boxes, right? We may have instead of kicking the can down the road, we may have got them to pick the can up. You know what I mean?
Could be, or people in the comments too, right? You never know you never know who's listening that you strike a chord with.
Right. So, and I appreciate you coming up and having a conversation with me and helping hold the panel down. And I'm going to bed here because I'm back in the States. I'm stateside. I know you're over in France, so it's gonna be a lovely day. You already get the sun shining over there.
Oh no, it's dark as hell out right now still here. But
oh yeah,
yeah. It was weird. It was like the seasons changed and a switch flipped, man, and it's just dark. Yeah.
It was when I was in Spain. It was 7:35 was sunrise.
Yeah.
So yeah, you still got a little bit of time because it's what 7:07 there.
Yep. Yeah. Did you have a good time?
Oh man, it was that's where this picture right here came from.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't see places like that much in the U.S. Yeah.
Not much at all. This was built before the America was here. Like this.
Oh yeah.
This is.
Yep.
So yeah, it was a great time. I always love traveling. Of course, I got a group that I travel with, and then I spend a week by myself. And I feel as though I know this is going to come from a place of privilege when I say this, but if anyone can, I encourage them to get out and explore the world by themselves. It really challenges who you are as a person and what you feel comfortable with, and how you move around yourself, how you feed yourself, how you make decisions for yourself. And therefore, when you come back to your society in your little bubble, like you're able to say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, because when you get out there, you remove all of those basically blinders, that we have in our daily 9 to 5, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, it is incredibly mind expanding. It really is.
Right. And cheeky or whatever, this entire life is a soft male viewpoint. I want a real man. That's problematic in itself, because when you say things like men are soft male viewpoint, that just means that men are showing expressions and emotions, and they're humanizing the human experience. And usually when somebody says real man, that means that they want a man that shows no emotion, and therefore they're cold, and the man is just being the oppressor, right? And that's a crazy thing to wish for, So, but
Well, have a good night, man.
hey, I appreciate you coming up. Anybody I see a couple of likes and follows, and I appreciate y'all, and we'll be back at it again. Bye, y'all. Y'all have